Alright, Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Some beasts have certainly risen. Alright, obviously there's some spoilers here, but I'm going to try not to go too in depth with the plot, or in many cases lack thereof. Hot off the positive reception and goodwill that was built up by the Bumblebee spinoff, we have a chance to keep riding that positive momentum to build back some trust that the previous movies never had with the audience. While honestly, like most things that came out around 15 years ago, the nostalgia of the original trilogy has people convincing themselves that they are in fact good movies. Those movies do have something that this movie did not have, in my opinion. That is a very clear style. The original Transformers trilogy, those movies, you went in knowing what you were going to get out of them. Big ass CGI robots that all kind of look the same, a minor plot line about some device that needs to be captured that involves the humans, some crude jokes, and some big old fights and destruction where a lot of people honestly die. This movie, you don't really have all that. You can tell the vibe is supposed to be more family friendly than the originals were. I want to say good things about this movie. I will try and think of some, but the bad is more persistent in my brain, so I'm going to start with that. I was pretty excited for this movie. I loved Transformers growing up. Transformers Armada was my show for show, so I'll be ready to see any of these movies when they come out. Unfortunately, I did not leave the theater pleased. The movie opens up solid, I would say. You see a different planet, you get some Maximal's backstory, you get some action, you see the threat of Unicron. It does typical movie stuff. Nothing too great, but it's not bland. Seeing a big monkey named Ape-Link fight off with another robot is dope at the end of the day. Plus, we get hyped and it shows Scourge. He shows that he's really like that. He's about that action. We need to make villains look dope and intimidating. If they aren't villains we're familiar with, like a Megatron. We know Megatron, so we don't have to see Megatron be dope. Scourge, most audience members don't know him. You have to make him look cool. So the early plot transpires and then we transition into the human plot line of this movie. So while I'm typing up this half script, I almost forgot what the dude's name even was. Noah. Noah is played by Anthony Ramos. He's supposed to be the hero of this movie. What we see early on about Noah is that he's a skilled individual, he's broke, he cares about his family, and he has a lot of heart. The movie gets its plot going by using Noah as a vehicle, ironically, to have a reason to bring the Transformers in. He can't get a job. He's mad that he can't get a job. He turns to crime, and that's how he ends up involved in the central plot. It's honestly kind of convoluted way of getting us to the point, but it's fine. Like most things in the movie, it's not too bad, but it's not too good either. The issue I have is the reasoning as to why he can't get a job. When Noah goes to interview to get a security company job, he learns that the interview was canceled. He chases down the man he was supposed to interview with, and he finds out the interview was canceled because Noah used to be in the military and he left, so that shows he's unreliable. That's pretty stupid, but whatever. I'm not here to judge that. I mean, maybe I missed something there. I'm sure they were trying to think of a good reason as to why this seemingly skilled guy can't get a job, but this kind of wasn't really a good reason. I also think Noah previously being in the military is pretty useless, but you know, actually I would say I know it's useless, and it's never really implied that he has any extra skills due to him being in the military. We can infer as an audience that that's why he's good at fixing things, but the movie doesn't do a good job bridging those two aspects of his life together, or really any of the things that he is seemingly good at together. Anyone that has seen the movie though knows exactly why they wanted to give him a military background, and it wasn't to show that he's capable of fixing a radio. It's for another reason that I will touch on later. Anyways, we see Noah's role in this story. Then we have the other side character who is thrust into the story as well. I honestly don't even remember her name. I'm going to look her up. I gotta stop recording so I can look up her name. Okay, Elena by Dominique Fishback. That is her name. So anyways, she's supposed to be this brainy woman who's naturally talented at researching artifacts and working a job that mistreats her, etc., etc. Her plot to start the movie makes sense. She's supposed to be good at knowing all this information, using her brains to figure it out, what everyone should do next, move us to the next location, help us figure out all this outside info. So I wasn't too mad at her role until the end. The whole purpose of her character was that she was able to naturally analyze these ancient texts, and it was culminating in her being able to use that information in order for her to help stop the impending doom. When the time came for her to do that, it ended up being completely useless. She spent all this brain power figuring out a secret code to stop Unicron coming in and taking over there and eating their whole planet, and she succeeded in inputting the code, right? But wait, turns out all the villain has to do is destroy the little computer console she put the code in, and it makes her entire role useless. So much for that. Also, I thought it was weird how they clearly wanted the two human characters to have like this romance, but they just kind of didn't do that. I'm very pro not just having, oh, these are two characters and they're the two people in the movie, so by default there's going to be a romance and they're going to love each other. But to be honest, it was kind of clear that that's where they wanted to go. I guess they just didn't have the time to like make that meaningful and have it be a good payoff, and they don't really touch on it again. But whatever, that's not the biggest issue in this movie. Now, the Transformers themselves. This is theoretically why people come to see this movie, right? I think the new style of brighter, more unique Transformers is great. It really does a good job of giving the Transformers, outside of Optimus and Bumblebee, a good visual personality. The negative part of this movie was how the Transformers acted. First, I'm going to start with Mirage. Mirage is supposed to be Noah's Bumblebee, but the relationship isn't nearly full of as much heart as Bumblebee and Sam Witwicky by Shia LaBeouf. The relationship they had way more heart, and they were clearly more close. Before I saw the movie, I saw people praising Pete Davidson's performance, but I think most of the jokes he tried to make ended up kind of not really hitting too well. I mean, I love stupid jokes, and I even love the dumb jokes in the original trilogy, but to be honest, and don't get me wrong, I love dumb jokes, I love stupid jokes, I love the dumb jokes in the original trilogy. I honestly even loved some of the dumb jokes in the two movies that came after that, and I thought Bumblebee was a funny movie, but this movie, it just was not hitting like that. And I saw a comment that said, oh, they just let Pete Davidson be himself and threw in a couple references to some robots, and I would say that's pretty accurate. And I'm sure for some people that is a good thing, but for me it kind of was a bad thing. So then we have RC, cool design, get some good action beats, but honestly pretty irrelevant from a character development standpoint. Can't remember anything particular about her. There was a Transformer that had the accent. I liked him, was only useful for a couple jokes, but you know, I was digging his vibe. Then we had the plane one, not really interesting. He was just a plane so he can get them to Peru. That was his whole purpose. The Maximals were kind of all the same. They were all these stoic robots. I understand they're supposed to be more serious because they have this bigger issue to deal with, but to be honest, that was a miss to me that they all kind of acted the same. I can't tell you anything about their particular personalities outside of Air Razor and Primal, and those two themselves basically both act the same anyway. So Bumblebee remains mostly the same, but I felt like his radio voice box was kind of strange in this movie. Like, it seems like in previous movies they were taking real clips from radio broadcasts and using them for his voice and comedic relief moments, but in this movie it felt like someone had recorded their own voice and then effects were added to make it seem like it was from the radio, and they played it off as real radio recording. I could be wrong, you know, but that's just how it sounded to me, and if true, it kind of cheapens his character and shows the lack of effort that they put into this movie. Honestly, maybe that's how they always did it. I don't know. However they did it in this movie, it just did not work for me. It seemed different and it seemed weak. Now, Optimus Prime, my dog. Most movies, Optimus will have you wanting to run through a brick wall and start running in the theater when he says Autobots roll out. In this movie, they make him seem like such a dumbass. I kept thinking, why is he acting like this? For most of the movie, Optimus is a crazy dude, but I don't think he's as illogical and vengeful in most of the movies as he is in this one. I know they were trying to show that he needs to learn how to trust humans more, but we've already seen instances where Optimus does that just fine. Him not being trusting and then ending up trusting Noah doesn't really do much for either character, and it was kind of ridiculous to show Optimus Prime, one of the GOAT leaders, one of the greatest leaders to ever do it, doing dumb stuff and putting his squad in jeopardy for no reason. The action in the final battle of the movie is cool. It may be the one moment where I was like, oh hell yeah, this is why I'm here. When the Maximals maximized, that's when I was like, okay, for sure, this is why we here right now. But that didn't last too long anyway. Noah and Mirage do this like weird fusion dance, and Noah becomes a little car man that was capable of helping beat Scourge, who the whole movie gasses up at this guy who kind of can't be beat because of Unicron's dark energy or whatever. And the whole car fusion thing was kind of corny. I get why they did it, but there are better ways to do that. Like, Noah could have had his own separate antagonist to fight while Optimus dealt with Scourge and the other Maximals helped in or whatever. And things just could have gone so differently to make a more cohesive movie that makes sense, and they just didn't do any of those things. Noah wasn't a character I really cared about, and his family plotline just wasn't compelling to me. Like, I know what they were going for, having his little brother be involved, but it all just came away being so pointless. Speaking of pointless, the whole 1990s gimmick, that was really annoying, to be honest. Like, oh yeah, this is totally the 90s. We got somebody watching the O.J. Simpson trial on a TV in an office. Like, that's just dumb. Oh, this little kid is making a Mario reference, even though Mario has been one of the most popular characters ever for the past 35 years. Yeah, totally 90s. I was over that stuff. There wasn't any specific reason for this movie to be in the 90s other than that they are super non-committal to whether this franchise has been rebooted or not. So the ending, Noah gets another job interview, has this honestly awkward conversation where this guy is pressing him about more information and what happened in Peru with the Autobots, and Noah's like, no, I'm not no snitch, and I'm not gonna tell you what happened. So the dude is like, all right, bet, and he gives him this little card. When he gave him the card, and mind you, this is like a business card. When When he gave him the card, my brain was like, oh, we're going to get like some recognizable Easter egg and some sort of thing related to something from a previous movie or the lore of the shows that makes the fans be like, oh, this is cool. But what did they freaking do? They showed the logo and it said G.I. Joe. Yes, that G.I. Joe, real American hero. I don't think this had the wow effect that they thought it would have with most people. Most people probably just like, why? It's more confusing than anything. Didn't we just get a Snake Eyes movie attempting to kind of reboot the G.I. Joe universe? I guess there's a way for both properties to have crossover, but are you going to involve other Hasbro properties? Are we going to have My Little Pony and Optimus Prime team up? Are we going to have a Monopoly and Snake Eyes Paramount Plus series? Things like that just show that a lot of these companies are still chasing those MCU shared universe big time wow moments without understanding what goes into making those moments special in the first place. Then they show some secret room open up where the movie should have just showed him the card and end it, but they showed this big secret CGI room that was kind of dumb and nobody really cared about it, but whatever. Anyways, what do I know? I think this movie has been received as a pretty mediocre movie. I'm aware the original trilogy weren't even that well received in terms of quality themselves, but honestly, I think most people would have a better time watching and enjoying what those movies have to offer, even if this movie was theoretically a better movie than the worst of those movies, if that makes sense. Maybe not the fourth or fifth, but I personally would rather rewatch the first three than watch this again. If I had to boil it down to see it, stream it, or skip it, I would honestly say skip. This isn't the worst movie I've seen, but I honestly think they are going to either go back and retool this whole Hasbro universe plan they have, or just come out with a Transformers sequel that is better and mostly ignores this movie anyways. Transformers is a huge property that has so much potential in the right hands, but I think they're really going to have to commit to rebooting this whole situation if they want to move forward with some positive fan reception. So yeah, this one went on a little longer. Sorry. I'm sorry for that. Thank you for bearing with me if you made it this far. Most people don't. I got like 60 something subscribers right now, so hopefully we get to 1,000. I'm gonna give something away. I'm gonna give something away to my sports viewers. I'm gonna give something away to my movie viewers. Just all the different branches of content I do. I plan to give something away whenever, if I reach 1,000 subscribers. So thank y'all. I'm gonna keep it going if y'all keep it going with me. Thank you.